Christmas in Evergreen, Bells Are Ringing is the fourth Christmas in Evergreen film from Hallmark, and I was kind of looking forward to this because I do like the other Christmas in Evergreen films, but I was slightly worried because I haven't seen the other ones in, well, I guess a year, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to follow it, but thankfully it does a really great job of recapping, of getting us up to speed. And in general, I liked the film, but I will say I didn't love it. It's probably the weakest of the four. And I'm kind of glad that, well, I'm assuming they're not doing any more Christmas and Evergreen films because they did one a year, every year for 4 years, and obviously haven't since 2020. But it's still a pretty good film. This is directed by Linda Lisa Hayter, written by Zach Hugg and Shari Sharpe, and this story focuses primarily on Hannah, played by Rukiya Bernard, and we also have other characters with their own personal problems as well, but for the most part, we're following Hannah and a bit of Michelle, played by Holly Robinson Peete. Michelle is planning her wedding. Hannah is trying to open the Christmas Museum, which I think is a fabulous idea, and I was really looking forward to seeing it progress and be put together. I wish we got to see a bit more of the process. We don't really get to see too much of the stages of development, and I kind of wish we did. But it's not so much of a big deal. It's just more of something that I think they could have focused on to bring a bit more Christmas to it, because to be perfectly honest, there's not a tremendous amount of Christmas in this. Most scenes have Christmas decorations and things in them, so there is enough Christmas for it to be called a Christmas film, but compared to the previous Christmas and Evergreens, it feels like it's lacking in festivities just a little bit, and the museum could have brought us that if we got to see more of it when everything was being put together. Unfortunately, it's not plain sailing. There is a problem that might stop the museum from coming to fruition. I won't say what it is, but I was going to say I was really emotionally invested in it. That might be an exaggeration, but I was wanting the museum to happen, and I was really keen to see what it was like. So I was at least curious to see what would happen there. Given that this is a Christmas romance film, we do obviously have various relationships, but it's kind of in reverse to the average Christmas rom-com and Christmas film like this, because Hannah is actually already in a relationship and she starts to question whether it's right for her. Rather than her meeting somebody and falling in love and trying to work out if it's right to be with them, she's working out if she wants to leave this person. And I won't say what happens with that either, but I enjoyed that. It was a little bit different and a little change of pace that made it quite fascinating. I will say it is a very busy film. I did feel like I had to pay full attention to everything because I'm presuming because I haven't seen the previous three films in a while, so there were some characters I couldn't really remember very well, and I had to kind of really work hard at certain points to make sure I was fully engaged with what was happening and was aware of which character, was relevant at the time. So it's definitely not the easiest watch, unless perhaps you've just watched the other ones back to back. Then I imagine that it's a different story, but that's just something that's worth bearing in mind. But it's not really a bad thing with the film because, well, when you have sequels, they kind of rely on knowledge of the previous films, and if it's been a while since you've seen the other films, it's kind of on you to either rewatch them or make sure you're fully engaged with the film, and thankfully that's something I was quite happy to do because it was a pretty enjoyable film. As I said, could have done with a bit more Christmas, given that it's Christmas in Evergreen, but at the same time, there was enough in it to be called a Christmas film. The characters were likeable, I was interested in their journeys, the narrative developed well, there were enough problems to keep things interesting. It ticks all of the right boxes, but at the same time, kind of glad it looks like it's the last Christmas in Evergreen. I think they've maybe milked it for all it's worth. But that being said, what we've got is pretty good, and if you've seen the previous three Christmas and Evergreens, which I do recommend, then Bells Are Ringing is also worth checking out. It's certainly not a bad film.